One thing we did smart when we launched is a lot of gifting, call it VIP gifting to PR, influencers, celebrities, retailers, national accounts. And I think that's a key strategy to get the product in people's hands. Whether I'm gifting it to someone like yourself or, a big celebrity, them just seeing it, feeling the brand, hopefully trying it, knowing that it exists is key.
This is BizNinja Entrepreneur Radio with your host, Tyler Jorgenson.
Welcome out to BizNinja Entrepreneur Radio, and we are continuing on this really cool feature where we're doing some people that are making big waves in the alcohol space. It wasn't an industry I knew a lot of, and I've kind of got to know more people in the industry recently, and really excited to have Charlie Grace on the show to talk about what they're doing with a new brand called NightOwl. So welcome out to the show, Charlie.
Tyler, thanks for having me. Excited to talk more about NightOwl.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to do a little bit of jumping back and forth through time here. And so right off the bat, I'm just curious, when was the moment you first realized that you were an entrepreneur?
I think it's since I was younger, coming out of college, and venturing into some, hospitality ventures. My family, my father was a restaurateur and my brothers are entrepreneurs, and myself, I always was looking for creative ways to build businesses. And one of my first ventures out of college was a bar in New York City.
That's no joke, man. That you're swinging for the fences right out, going for the hard stuff, man. That's awesome.
Been a fun learning experience for sure.
Oh, I'm sure. And so you've created NightOwl, and if people want to check it out, you can go to drinknightowl.com. And it's a ready-to-drink martini. But what made you choose that, and what makes NightOwl unique?
Yeah, so I think, first and foremost, if you look at, the overall alcohol space, it's obviously super competitive. A lot of oversaturation, particularly in RTDs. And then, had a major moment, call it during COVID. And you're seeing that momentum just in the numbers and continued growth of RTDs in general. And I think, where we wanted to focus was at the premium cocktail side. That's more inefficient to make, both on premise and for the consumer at home. So, the initial idea was really, hey, how can we make a bartender quality or cocktail quality Espresso Martini, ready to drink format. And I think a big differentiator of the NightOwl brand is we have a tequila SKU as well.
Yeah, which isn't common, right? So, usually your average martini is going to be vodka based. And so what made you decide to do that?
Yeah, I just think, the continued growth of tequila, the younger consumers, are drinking more and more tequila. And I thought the differentiation of a tequila one that, I think is delicious, but it complements well vodka. And so we wanted to call it a holistic offering for consumers. And, I think the growth of the Espresso Martini in general, and it being kind of the fourth most popular cocktail in the world, I think it's here to stay. And we want to bring a solution for both high volume venues or bars to, the consumer at home that doesn't have all the ingredients or time to make it.
So that makes sense. You went from, you had your own bar, and what made you want to get into the space of actually owning your own product?
Great question. I think, again, I wasn't just looking to start, an alcohol brand. I have a co-founder in the business, who kind of came at it from a strategic angle where he, owned a big co-packer in the Northeast for beverage. So we kind of helped on streamlining the production operations to start this. But, to be frank, I think I saw the inefficiencies of making this cocktail in crowded bars and high volume places, whether it's a venue, a music festival, or a hotel mini bar. We can be a solution, I think, first and foremost. And so I think we were solving a problem. It wasn't just
me through that. Let's assume that the average listener doesn't know what goes into behind the bar when they order an espresso martini, right? So talk me through what an average bar has to do, and then what they have to do if they are just going to use NightOwl.
Yeah, so I think, first is you got to have the staff, right? And it takes time to make these. And I always say espresso martinis are contagious. When one person orders one, typically the whole group does. And so, the bartender's making 4, 5, 6 of these at one time. they've got to be getting the coffee or espresso. They've then got to mix that with the spirit. And, look, every bartender makes it differently. And so I think, how we approach this is let's make a really good, consistent base level espresso martini that's coffee forward, not too sweet. And if the bartender wanted to add, call it a liqueur or a shot of Bailey's or Kahlua, it's great. But in terms of how consumers drink it or how a bartender serves it, I mean, it's whether out of the can, which, we like the size of our vessel at 200 milliliters. It's a full espresso, 12.5 ABV, full cocktail, I should say, full strength cocktail. And they can drink it, consumers can drink it cold out of the can. They could, shake it up and pour it in a martini glass and be fancy and garnish it with 3 beans like you normally would see. Or, I think a lot of people drink it over ice, kind of on the rocks. So a lot of flexibility to drinking NightOwl.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've actually seen that contagious nature of it where, and I once saw it at a bar that they actually would have to go get the espresso from like the next door restaurant each time. And so they'd come back, they'd finish it. And then someone like, oh, I want one of those. And you see the bartender visibly like take a deep breath, sigh, go order it again. And it was very inefficient. So yeah, interesting. It solves a real problem in that industry. But so is your go-to-market strategy and your goal to like really just be in all the bars? Or are you trying to sell directly to end consumers? What's your makeup there?
Yeah, and I think, when we initially launched, in full transparency, it took us about almost 2 years to get the liquid right. And that's just the nature of combining coffee, alcohol, two, call it tough ingredients to mix together, and getting the right formulation. So that was first and foremost. And then with our go-to-market strategy, obviously we wanted to build a brand and a presence. We think the name obviously alludes to what an espresso martini is. It's, a little pick-me-up, whether it's pre-going out or even at brunch. But, for most people, it's sometimes a post-dinner cocktail, and it will keep you up as a night owl. So creating that brand was obviously very important for us. And then lastly, going into market with alcohol, obviously there's a 3-tier system. You need to have an actual distributor and sell the product to the distributor before it ever gets to the consumer. So it's not necessarily easy to get the product in the hands of the consumer. But we approached it first and foremost self-distributing with a group called Park Street. Got the product out there in New York, New Jersey, and Florida. And, we're able to sell online at first. And then, our first, call it, from there, we went kind of more liquor stores, off-premise. That was kind of our first angle. And now we're really focused on premise. So, bars, restaurants, hotels, mini bars, big venues, etc.
So you said it took you 2 years to get the formulation and figure all that out. You'd been in the industry, but not in this side of things. What was the most surprising part of that experience?
I think just, how every consumer has a different, call it, taste profile, and really just working hard to find, the best, call it, base layer that's not too sweet, not too bitter, not too high in sugar, that pours really nicely. And I think that's a key thing for us is with our 200 milliliter can, we're able to nitro each can. So when you shake it up and pour it out, it has that nice foam head. And so it was just a lot of trial, a lot of formulation and really coming to a liquid that we were really, confident in.
That's cool. And then, you got started, you had a really good partner getting into some distributors and getting started. What, as you look forward, what are some big things you want to see happen in the brand over the next year or so?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I think, we've continued to grow. We've been in market since April of 2023. So, we're pushing along. And I think the next big step for us is the on-premise, really, honing in on the, bars, restaurants, venues, strategic, call it, partnerships, whether it's, hotel groups or music venues or arenas, airlines potentially, et cetera, and really, focusing to drive, call it, brand awareness and consumer trial.
Running a brand is really cool, especially as you start to, get the brand on. I was looking on your Instagram, you got like a cool sweatshirt. I don't even know if that's something you actually sell, but you start to see the brand become something bigger than just a product, right? And, it's one of the things that's rewarding about building a product is seeing your team grow and see things like that. As you've been growing the business, what are some things that you've had to also grow and learn to be able to handle the new challenges that came your way?
Yeah, I mean, I think first and foremost, you got to build a great team. You've got to have people in the market. First of all, you have to have a marketing strategy, which then translates into how do you sell. And I think you got to really surround yourself with key, call it employees that, have been in the business, they understand alcohol and some of the nuances to every, there's a lot of different laws and states, and different ABVs, whether it can be sold in a grocery store, or a gas station, or just liquor store, etc. Some states are control states where they control all the alcohol to underlying retailers. So it's complex, and I think you got to surround yourself with smart people that have been in this space and understand, the alcohol industry.
Yeah, that's for sure. So learning to lead a team and hire well has been probably one of the bigger things outside of just developing the product that you have to figure out.
100%. We were fortunate to bring on a key employee, late last year that's really kind of streamlined our distribution strategy, our sales strategy, and kind of been a really, call it, key partner to get us to where we are today. And now we're focused on going deep in the current states we're distributed in.
Yeah. So you've got a list of current states, but do you have a dream location you're hoping to get into next?
I think, we've been focused up and down the East Coast, being a New York City based brand, the Northeast is really important to us. And then as you go farther down the East Coast, obviously, Florida, Tennessee, Georgia, et cetera, and kind of growing our footprint there, and really focusing on those markets without expanding too quick, just to be in, let's just say Nevada, to be in Vegas, we want to make sure we go deep in the markets we're in today, prove out the product.
That makes sense.
And then look to expand.
Yeah, absolutely. If you could have one celebrity endorsement, right? One person that steps in tomorrow is like, this is the face of the brand. If let's say you had an unlimited check to sign something like that, who would it be?
Great question. We've talked a lot about that, and it's hard to just pinpoint one name. And we've had conversations. I think the key thing with that is making sure it's really, call it organic, meaning that the person that, let's just say is your, call it brand ambassador or partner, whether it's a celebrity, an influencer, athlete, et cetera, really believes in the brand, wants to organically market the brand, and they want to live and breathe it and be in front of, call it, whether it's key retailers, distributors, or consumers. You've got to find someone that's going to buy into it. The last thing we want to do is just bring someone on that's, purely marketing channels and, maybe post about it on social media, but, that doesn't necessarily get buy-in from the consumer.
I agree with all of that, but I'm going to follow up. So who are so I'm sure everyone on your team's got a couple of different people, and I'm not saying this has to be the spokesperson, but who would you be super pumped with if you saw a tag you guys on a post tomorrow? You know what I mean?
Well, I think that this whole, call it influencer world, I think that there's a lot of, big figures that are coming out these days. And so if you're able to get one of the big players there, which we all know, whether it's, I'm trying to think of the exact person, but I guess, we've even had conversations with actors and athletes, and, athletes, it's tough to promote alcohol, and actors, sure, they're so busy. And so you need someone that's kind of organically market it in their channels. So I would lean towards, call it more of an influencer.
Absolutely. Have you had any of those moments already where you've seen, somewhere where you didn't place the product, but it was like you saw pop up, and what was that like?
Yeah, no, it's definitely rewarding to see it, organically out in the wild, call it. And I think, sure, one thing we did smart when we launched is a lot of gifting, call it VIP gifting to PR, influencers, celebrities, retailers, national accounts. And I think that's a key strategy to get the product in people's hands, whether I'm gifting it to someone like yourself or, a big celebrity, them just seeing it, feeling the brand, hopefully trying it, knowing that it exists is key.
Yeah. It's, it's fascinating. I've owned, products in apparel, accessories, nutrition, stuff like that. Never done anything in this space. And so, but it's really neat when you see a product or you see something you created somewhere where you didn't place it, right? Where it like found its way, like you said, in the wild. And it's really cool. It's like, it's very validating. When was you started with, took you 2 years to develop a product. You had some good relationships, but what was that first moment where you're like, okay, we're moving from idea into this might actually, was it an initial contract or a landing of a specific deal? What was that first moment where you're like, I think we got some?
Yeah, we've had like kind of two pivotal moments, call it. One, when we launched, fortunate to be connected to one of the biggest retailers in New Jersey called Bottle King. And they were excited about the brand and they really got behind it. They had about 15 stores, they're probably the biggest, call it, alcohol focused retailer in the state. So their buy-in initially was huge. And I think the other, call it, key moment was, earlier this year, in January, we went to the WSWA, which is the big wholesalers conference. And it was in Vegas this past year. And we were fortunate to win, call it, the RTD brand. And so we were able to compete on stage in Vegas against all other alcohol brands, from tequila to wine, beer, non-alc, etc. Present the brand in front of an audience of all the key, call it, decision makers. And I think that was huge for us. And then, I think the awards, I think we've won over 10 awards on the liquid, and, all the best in class, double golds to platinums, all those different awards, they matter. And I think, having that validation to know that we have a great liquid, continues to propel us, in the market. We're confident to put this up against any espresso martini.
That's really cool. Yeah, it is validating. People can pretend that it's not to get the awards and stuff, but it's an important thing, and it sends good signals out to the marketplace as well. As you guys are building this, as you're starting to go deeper into the markets where you already exist, I am a big believer that life is not just about business; it's also about your personal life. So, what's one item on Charlie's personal bucket list you're going to accomplish in the next 12 months?
Great question. I guess business aside, I love, call it, building things and seeing the success points along the way and taking a step back and saying, hey, we've got a great product and we've had these wins along the way. Like, I want to, continue to grow this. So for me, it's just really, always taking a moment and a step back to say, hey, we're in market. We've got a great product. We have the right, call it, partners, and, let's see this through.
So just kind of make sure you're enjoying the process, not just rushing to the next step.
Yeah, I think, a lot of entrepreneurs get caught up in, every day is a struggle. Every day is a grind. Some days you have wins, some days you have losses. But I think if you believe in the product and the team, and you continue to put your head down and just focus on what you can do, I think you can build a big brand.
I think the branding is really on point, very clever. Obviously play on lots of good plays on, common terms and sayings and what an espresso martini does. Very cool stuff there. As you guys are just expanding, do you see yourself adding more SKUs or just really trying to go deeper with what you currently have?
I think for the next, call it, year, let's just say from now through 2025, we have two great liquids. And I think we'll focus on growing those each and every state we're in. Yeah. But let's say down the road, 2 to 3 years down the road, I do see future product iteration. But I think, our brand will be focused on the coffee and alcohol space, and will not, go into just other pre-made or ready to drink cocktails. So I think focusing on, what we have in different spirit bases maybe, or different variations of what we have, whether it's a creamier one, etc., is on our radar. But, for now, I think let's focus on these, prove this out, and then take a step back to say, what are consumers also asking for? And if we were to come out with something, what's the next best thing for us?
So you got good momentum. You guys are doing some great stuff, but you're only a few years in. And so inevitably, and you mentioned it a moment ago, that a lot of entrepreneurs are stuck in that, constantly hustling, there's wins and there's losses. What was one of the first major obstacles that you faced, and how did you overcome it?
Well, I think, talking about the formulation process, I think, we were self-funding. We didn't think it was going to take us that long to get to market. But we stayed firm to the premise that, first and foremost, you got to have a great tasting liquid, because if it doesn't taste well, people aren't going to drink it. And I think that goes for consumer products in general. And so I think we really invested up front in the liquid and getting that right. And there were some moments there, during that time period where we didn't have a fully baked formulation, where I was like, maybe it's just not meant to be in a ready to drink format.
And so the way you got through that was just what, sticking to it, staying the course?
Yeah. Trial and error, testing things, from 0 grams of sugar to, 20 grams of sugar, and figuring out, the ingredient mix. I think for us, we came back to the basics of very simple ingredient mix, not too sweet, not too bitter, coffee forward. And so I think it just was a lot of trial and error with, I'm sure our formulator, and we thank him for all that hard work, but I'm sure he was like, this is just, I thought this would be a 3-month, 6-month project, not a 2-year project.
And so you've got, again, really cool branding, good stuff happening. And, you mentioned that you came from a hospitality family, that you even launched your own restaurant at one point. And I believe you do some consulting and stuff as well. What are the common business principles that you're just finding repeat over and over in all the things you're doing? I
think the number one thing for me has always been building a great network and constantly talking with people in and out of the industry. And I think, for that, you learn things always along the way. And doesn't always have to be an agenda. Have conversations with people, get their perspective, get their advice, tell them what you're seeing, and get feedback. And I think for us, we're always in the market, talking with people, and there's not always some immediate outcome.
Makes sense. And you're right. Networking is something, it's a whole idea of build your well before you're thirsty. It's not necessarily about one specific thing, just about constantly being there. And so as you're now building some momentum, do you look back and see, like, who can I help along the way? Who can I nudge forward and kind of mentor and help?
Yeah. I mean, I'm always open to that. And, I guess one cool story along the way is I've had, some few entrepreneurs, younger guys that have reached out to me directly to say, hey, I'd love to chat with you. I want to start my own beverage business in some capacity. Love to get your perspectives, your learnings, etc. So I think, you always got to give back and talk to people, and, it's a long journey. It's not, you don't win overnight. And so, it could always come back the flip side where I need help and I go to these other people. So, it's definitely just a persistence game.
If you were starting over today, what's easier, a RTD alcohol product or starting a bar in New York City?
Oh, great question. I would say a bar.
Yeah.
And I say that because it's a physical location where you can manage costs a little more efficiently, and you can, figure out creative ways to get bodies, in the venue. And I think with this, we thought we had a call it product market fit, and consumers wanted it, but you almost have to go out and tell that story, because it's not just, a tequila or a vodka brand. It's not just a vodka seltzer or it's a differentiated product in a growing segment.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you mentioned creative ways to get people into the bar, right? Did you apply any of those creativity, any of that kind of guerrilla marketing tactics that you learned, growing up in the industry, owning a bar, into what you're doing now at NightOwl, working on, and what you've created over there at NightOwl? If you're wanting to check more out, you can find them on socials at Drink NightOwl or online at drinknightowl.com. And if you're in their market, definitely check it out and ask for it at your local, establishment, wherever you're enjoying drinks. So thanks so much for coming out on the show, Charlie. And to all my biz ninjas, wherever you're listening, watching, or tuning in, it's your turn to go out and do something.